Good afternoon, Good Shepherd. I'm happy to come to you on this Wednesday, August 12th. Many of you know or may have participated in the discussions that we had last Sunday, and which will be continuing over the next 3 weeks, having to do with visioning. What is Good Shepherd called to do at this time, not only with regard to COVID and coming out of COVID, but just in terms of our next years together. And in the process of listening to some of those conversations and reading some of the notes, I was reminded of a definition of vocation by Frederick Buechner. I've quoted it before, but like I say, I was reminded of it again, and I'd like to read this. And actually, I'm going to read all of it rather than just the summary that I often do. Vocation comes from the Latin word vocare, to call, and means the work a person is called to by God. There are all different kinds of voices calling you to all different kinds of work. And the problem is to find out which is the voice of God rather than of society, say, or the superego or self-interest. By and large, a good rule for finding out is this: the kind of work God usually calls you to is the kind of work that A, that you most need to do, and B, that the world most needs to have done. If you really get a kick out of your work, you've presumably met requirement A. But if your work is writing cigarette ads, the chances are you've missed requirement B. On the other hand, if your work is being a doctor in a leper colony, you've probably met requirement B. But if most of the time you're bored and depressed by it, the chances are you have not only bypassed A, but probably aren't helping your patients much either. Neither the hair shirt nor the soft berth will do. The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. It's not going to show up. It's from this book, Wishful Thinking, Seeker's ABC. Again, the author is Frederick Buechner, Buechner. I've always loved that definition of vocation, where your deep gladness and the world's deep needs intersect. And I think that that's what we're really trying to figure out right now at Good Shepherd as we move through some of these conversations. Earlier this week, I got an article. It was written in July, so it's not recent. But if you have the New Yorker, if you take the New Yorker, you might have seen it. And the article is by environmentalist Bill McKibben. It's titled, it's from the July 6th issue, and it's titled "Back to Church, but Not, Let's Hope, Back to Normal." And I just want to read a little bit of it. He begins by saying, "I went to church for the first time in many months on Sunday. In fact, it was the first even mildly routine public thing I've done since March. The service was outdoors, of course, in a small open-sided tabernacle built here in the Adirondacks along the banks of the Upper Hudson in 1908 to serve a Methodist campground where congregations began meeting in 1871. Though families still come to the small collection of summer houses along the shore, the place, like Methodism, is a shadow of its former glory. There were but 19 of us on the straight-backed wooden pews for the service, so social distancing was not a problem. And though I am no young man, I considerably lowered the average age when I sauntered in. We all wore masks, and only the preacher, a safe 20 feet away from the front pew, sang the hymns. Still, it felt deeply familiar and deeply comforting. The first hymn, 'We Gather Together,' which is often sung at Thanksgiving, had me very nearly in tears, if only for the sense of how much normal we have done with out how much normal we have done without of late. And of course, for the understanding that there are 130 fewer of us to gather than there should be. It goes on. But the point of church is not just comfort or familiarity. It is, or should be, coming to grips with the relentless radicalism of Jesus, with the gospel demand that we love our neighbors in effective ways. He goes on to talk about some of the things that have transpired since we've been hit with COVID, whether it's just COVID itself or the stuff about George Floyd and all of those other kinds of things. And then he talks about it a little bit as a shift in our normal way of going about things. And in what I'll conclude with, he refers to it as a pause. One way to think about this pause in our lives is a rare, likely once in a lifetime opportunity for a reset. We actually stopped the one thing our societies have never heretofore done. Things ground to a halt, offering us the chance to examine our lives and our institutions. And now, if we want it, we have a chance to rearrange things. Sometimes we can see those rearrangements. Wise cities are replacing car-dominated streets with bike lanes and pedestrian malls, for instance. But most of it will necessarily be less visible. If your city council or state legislature resumes normal operation without massively shifting its budget priorities, if your business just deploys its army of lobbyists to look for some more tax breaks, if your church just performs some delayed funerals and then goes back to where it was in January, well, in that case, none of this will have counted. Much as I enjoy singing hymns, I was glad we were still masked and silent on Sunday morning, that we had to sit apart, that instead of passing the peace with a handshake or a hug, we were restricted to a namaste bow. One hopes that these kinds of changes will last for many months to come, and not simply for reasons of public health. They are uncomfortable reminders that we should remain uncomfortable even when life starts back up. Normal is the enemy, he concludes. I wrote a blog post many years ago that normal is a setting on the washing machine, not the way that life really spins out. And so we continue to have this opportunity to figure out what we are called to, given this pause. We have had things at Good Shepherd have ground to a halt, and we are now engaged in figuring out how we want to re-envision ourselves. Many things will stay the same, many things will change, many things will just be altered. So please join us in these conversations. They will continue for the next 3 weeks. If you see questions that you would like to answer that you didn't have a chance to answer, either because you weren't there on a Sunday morning or you were in the other group, let me know. Let the transition team know, and we'll fold those into all of the work that we will still have to do once this August is over and we start generating what that vision truly looks like. So anyway, thank you. And again, please engage in these conversations with us. I just want to say one thing about this coming Sunday. As you've seen in the e-news in the past, and I mentioned in the sheepskin, this coming Sunday, we will honor our athletes like we did, well, kind of like we did last year, but we do want to pay attention to our athletes. And that's whether they are kids or whether they are adults, honor that endeavor, that athletic endeavor. And so if you have a picture of you or one of your children or your spouse or your partner or whatever engaged in that athletic pursuit, something that they're in their uniform or costume or whatever it is, please send that to me. Tomorrow would be great. If it gets in on Friday, I'll still be able to work with it. And we will honor and bless athletes on Sunday, in addition to blessing the devices, which you'll hear more about as well. So anyway, I look forward to seeing you soon. look forward to seeing you on Sunday and hearing your great ideas about what the Church of the future, what Good Shepherd of the future will look like, and what it took to get it there. This is looking forward and looking back all at the same time. Thank you. Blessings to you all.